Hey, it's Melanie. I just wanted to jump on and say thank you so much for listening to the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I've been truly blown away by all the kind and wonderful comments people have been leaving for me about the podcast. If you are enjoying the podcast, please consider leaving a review on whatever platform you listen to your podcast on. This really helps me help more people prevent kidney stones. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I'm your host, registered dietitian and kidney stone expert, Melanie BUSTS. After learning a ton about kidney stones and helping people prevent stones at the University of Chicago, I was fed up with all the terrible advice people were finding online. So I decided to do something about it. The Kidney Dietitian was born. This podcast is for people who want to learn what actually works to prevent kidney stones and still enjoy life, eating, and their favorite foods. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the 45th episode of the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I'm your host, registered dietitian and kidney stone expert, Melanie BUSTS. And today I wanted to tackle a question or a misconception, if you will, that I hear all the time about kidney stone nutrition. And that is, can I have black pepper with kidney stones? Short answer, this might be the shortest podcast that ever existed, but yes, there is absolutely no reason that you can't have black pepper, no matter who you are, what your 24-hour urine test looks like, what kind of stones you're forming, what your past medical history is. Every single person in the world can have black pepper. There's really no reason to avoid black pepper. So I thought, just for the sake of making this podcast a little bit more meaty, we could dive into why I do say that it's okay that you can eat black pepper. So, of course, always, whenever a food is listed as, quote, bad for kidney stones, it comes back to oxalate, right? So the reason that black pepper is often listed as this, quote, high oxalate food is because many nutrient tables list portion sizes in a standard portion size of 100 grams. That is a weight measurement of a food. And this is really helpful for some applications, mostly related to research and what sort of how dietitians think about food sometimes. But it is incredibly unhelpful and leads to very misleading information when it comes to actual real world advice, because we don't eat portions of 100 grams of food, right? So 100 grams, again, is a weight measurement. So 100 grams of, say, water, which is relatively healthy, is going to be a much smaller volume than 100 grams of black pepper. Black pepper is pretty light, right? There's not a whole lot of heft to it. So just for context, 100 grams of black pepper equates to about an entire cup of black pepper. 1 cup, 1 8-ounce fluid ounce cup. That's a lot of black pepper, guys. Like, I don't know who in the world is sitting down and eating even tablespoons, much less cups of black pepper. If you are, I imagine that you might have some heartburn or some other things going on that we need to address other than that oxalate content. And so the myth that black pepper is high in oxalate comes from the fact that a lot of these nutrient tables list all portion sizes, so we can easily compare them in these 100 gram measurements. But again, no one ever is going to eat 1 cup of black pepper. I really don't think so. Like, often we'll put in maybe like a half a teaspoon in an entire pot of soup or over an entire recipe that you're probably not even going to eat all at the same time anyway. So again, we've got to look at portion size here, and we've got to look at the big picture. And I have to say that this is actually the same for all spices. If you get too far down this low oxalate rabbit hole, you'll see endless spices and herbs that are, quote, bad because they're high in oxalate. The same story applies. For any of them, there's no way that you are going to eat enough of that spice or herb, whether it's fresh or dried, to make any difference. This is not why people are forming stones, right? There's other things. It's because we're eating a ton of meat. It's because we're eating a ton of salt, and we're not getting enough calcium, and we're not drinking water. It's not the black pepper, guys. It really isn't. I actually have a whole post about this So I will link to that in the show notes. But again, going back to portion size, because it's just so mind blowing, right? So if we put this into context, so maybe a more reasonable portion size of black pepper, I'll put a teaspoon, even though we're not eating even a whole teaspoon of black pepper, but 1 teaspoon, an entire teaspoon, has only 12 milligrams of oxalate. Okay. Guys, even that is nothing. Even if you were to eat a whole teaspoon, 12 milligrams is nothing. You know that I highly discourage counting oxalate because there simply is no goal amount that I could give you, and it is literally impossible to count oxalate accurately. So I think it's a silly task to ask someone to do. But for context, because I know a lot of times people just need the numbers, a whole teaspoon of black pepper only has 12 milligrams of oxalate. If we compare that to oxalate, say in 1 baby spinach leaf, that's about the same. So 1 baby spinach leaf has about 11 milligrams of oxalate. So this is exactly why we sometimes see people get into trouble when they're eating large amounts of spinach, say, which is a very high oxalate food, especially outside of a well-balanced diet that includes enough calcium. Also for context, a half cup of cooked spinach has about 755 milligrams of oxalate. So that's a lot. 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and again, you're probably not even a teaspoon, you're probably not even a quarter teaspoon of black pepper, honestly, in one sitting, but that whole teaspoon only has 12 milligrams of oxalate. So yes, again, shortest podcast ever, but it needed to be said because I see this myth perpetuated all the time, so I wanted to make it very clear that black pepper and any herb and spice is totally fine for people with kidney stones. And if anything, it's actually really good for you to add because it helps make your food taste good. Salt is a much, 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 much bigger deal for most people when it comes to kidney stone prevention than oxalate is. And so when we are adding delicious flavors to our food via things like black pepper or turmeric or basil or whatever it is, that's going to help you enjoy your food and help you add less salt. And that will actually help you prevent kidney stones, not avoiding black pepper. All right. End of podcast. Short and sweet one today, but again, such an important point that I wanted to dedicate an entire episode to, and I hope to see you next week on the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For more help with kidney stones, check out my website, www.thekidneydietitian.org. For more personalized help from me, check out my online course, Kidney Stone Nutrition School. VIP enrollment includes help directly from me. I can't wait to see you there and help you prevent kidney stones. Have a great day.